Imagine this for a moment, a man who looks at the woman he loves, not with lust in his eyes, but with an ache. That deep, quiet ache that says, I want to give you something you've never felt before. Not just pleasure, not just passion, but peace. He doesn't say it out loud. He doesn't even have to, because somewhere inside, he knows that what he truly wants to do to her can't be captured in words. It's not about control, not about fantasy, not even about the physical. It's about impact, about leaving fingerprints on her soul, not her skin. See, when men fall in love, really fall, it changes everything. The same man who once chased women for validation suddenly becomes obsessed with one thing: how to make her feel something she's never felt before. He wants to move her, not manipulate her. To touch her, not just with his hands, but with his presence. And that's the part no one talks about, the secret world of what men fantasize about doing to the women they truly love. Because, let's be honest, when we talk about what men want, we usually reduce it to something shallow. We talk about attraction, chemistry, the chase. But underneath that surface, under the ego, the pride, the silence, lies a completely different story, one that most men are too afraid to admit, and most women never get to see. This isn't about dominance or submission. It's about depth. It's about that hidden list every man carries in his heart. The 10 things he dreams of doing to the woman who makes him feel alive. Things that go far beyond what happens in the bedroom. Things that have to do with her mind, her heart, her peace. And that's what we're going to uncover today. Because behind every strong man, behind every confident smile, behind every look that lingers just a little too long, there's a man who's not just fantasizing about taking her body. He's fantasizing about earning her trust, about being her safety, about awakening her joy. This is not a talk about desire. It's a revelation about devotion. It's about what it truly means to do something to a woman you love. Not to own her, but to awaken her. Not to impress her, but to understand her. So tonight, as you listen, I want you to forget everything you think you know about what men want. Forget the stereotypes, the locker, room talk, the social media noise. Because for the next 30 minutes, we're going to open a door most people never dare to walk through. The door to what love feels like from a man's heart, not his hand. And when you hear it, when you really feel it, you'll realize that the most powerful fantasies aren't about taking from her. They're about giving to her, not just what she desires, but what she deserves. There's a kind of silence a man feels when he truly loves a woman. It's not the silence of not knowing what to say, it's the silence of knowing too much. Because he suddenly realizes how fragile something so powerful can be. When a man loves a woman deeply, every instinct inside him starts to shift. The same energy he once used to prove himself to the world now turns inward. He doesn't just want to conquer, he wants to protect. But here's the twist. The kind of protection he dreams about isn't about wrapping her in armor. It's about becoming the kind of man who makes her feel safe enough to take it off. You see, every man carries within him an ancient code, a primal urge to guard, to defend, to create safety for what he cherishes. But modern love complicates that instinct. Because today, women don't need saving, they need seeing. And that's where most men struggle. The fantasy isn't about being her hero, it's about being her home. He doesn't want to protect her because she's weak. He wants to protect her because, to him, she's sacred. He fantasizes about being the calm she can lean into after a stormy day, the space where she can breathe without fear of judgment. He dreams about being the man who doesn't just shield her from the world, but from the chaos inside her own mind. The man who knows when to pull her closer and when to give her the freedom to fight her own battles. That's a kind of strength most people never talk about. The strength it takes to protect without possessing. Because the truth is, protection without freedom becomes control. And love, the kind of love that changes people, can't survive in control. So when a man truly loves, his fantasy starts to evolve. It becomes less about guarding her body and more about guarding her peace. He wants to be the one she can collapse into when she's tired of pretending she's strong all the time. The one who holds her without trying to fix her. The one who listens without interrupting her healing with his ego. He doesn't want her to depend on him. He wants her to choose him. Again and again, even when she doesn't need to. That's what protection means in its highest form. It's not about shielding her from pain. It's about standing beside her as she faces it, so she never feels alone in it. It's being her quiet witness, her defender when the world doubts her soft place to fall when she doubts herself. Men don't talk about it, but deep down, they crave to be that steady force. They want to be her anchor, not the weight that holds her down, but the stability that keeps her from drifting too far. They want to be the reason she feels safe being vulnerable, wild, emotional, unfiltered. Because the truth is, most women don't need more protection. They just need to feel like they can let go without losing themselves. And that's where the real fantasy lies. A man in love fantasizes about creating a space so safe that she doesn't have to wear her armor. He notices her strength, admires it, but secretly dreams of the moments when she lets it down, when she allows him to see her tears, her insecurities, her fears, not because she's broken, but because she trusts that he won't break her further. There's a quiet honor in that. A man who can hold a woman's softness without exploiting it understands what real protection means. He protects her energy. He defends her absence. He shields her reputation when she's not in the room. He doesn't let others talk about her like she's a story to be told. He knows that his loyalty is part of her safety, that being her protector isn't about fighting every battle, but about being the man she can rely on when the noise of the world gets too loud. And yet, he also knows he can't be her cage, because the moment protection turns into possession, love starts to suffocate. That's the paradox men face, wanting to hold her close, but knowing he has to let her fly. Real love is learning to stand guard at the gate of her freedom, not the door of her confinement. It's loving her enough to want her to outgrow him. If that's where her journey leads, to protect her without caging her means, trusting her strength as much as he trusts his own. It means being secure enough to watch her shine without fear that her light will make his dimmer. It means cheering for her independence, not feeling threatened by it. A man who truly loves doesn't want to own her fire. He wants to keep the world from putting it out. And that's what men secretly fantasize about. Not domination, not control, but contribution. The quiet satisfaction of knowing that his presence gives her permission to be her fullest self. That when she laughs, when she dreams, when she walks through the world glowing with confidence, a part of that came from the safety he helped her build. In that space, protection becomes art. It's the art of being solid without being suffocating, gentle without being weak, present without being possessive. He doesn't build walls around her, he builds walls behind her so she never has to look over her shoulder. And here's the thing, when a woman feels that kind of safety, something magical happens. She doesn't shrink, she expands, she loves harder, she trusts deeper, she becomes more playful, more feminine, more alive. Because when a woman feels safe, she stops surviving and starts feeling. And for a man, that's the ultimate reward, seeing the woman he loves breathe freely, knowing he helped her remember how. That's the real fantasy, to protect her without owning her, to hold her without gripping, to love her so deeply that her wings feel stronger, not smaller. Every man who's ever truly loved knows this feeling, that ache to be her shelter and her sky at the same time, to make her feel so secure that she forgets she ever had to guard herself. Because at the end of the day, protection isn't about what he does for her, it's about who he becomes because of her. The man who stands taller, softer, calmer, because he knows that somewhere in this chaotic world, there's a woman who feels safe enough to be herself in his arms. And that is the kind of fantasy that doesn't end in a moment. It builds a lifetime. There's a truth that most men will never say out loud, not because they don't feel it, but because they've been taught not to. It's the quiet ache of wanting to be wanted, not just needed, to be desired, not just appreciated. See, when a man loves a woman, something shifts in him. His ego begins to take a back seat to something deeper, a longing to be seen not for what he does, but for who he is when all the masks fall away. He doesn't crave just the heat of her body, he craves the warmth of her understanding. He doesn't just want her to look at him with attraction, he wants her to look at him and see him. For most of his life, he's been rewarded for performance, for being strong, capable, unshakable. The world applauds his achievements, his confidence, his ability to keep everything under control. But behind that armor, there's a part of him that quietly asks, would you still want me if I wasn't all of that? Because for a man, true desire from the woman he loves isn't about admiration, it's about acceptance. He fantasizes about the kind of connection where he doesn't have to impress her every moment just to earn her affection. Where her desire for him isn't conditional, it's rooted in recognition. Recognition of the man he is when no one's watching. The man who's tired. The man who doubts himself sometimes. The man who hides his fears behind silence. He dreams of the woman who sees all that and still reaches for him. Not because she pities him, but because she understands that even in his uncertainty, he's still worthy of being loved. To be desired emotionally is to be desired in a way that goes beyond the surface. A man longs for a woman who can touch his soul before she touches his skin. Someone who makes him feel safe enough to drop the act, to stop pretending he's always fine. He wants to feel wanted when he's not winning, when he's not at his best, when his confidence falters. Because in those moments, her desire doesn't just make him feel attractive, it makes him feel alive. There's something intoxicating about being desired emotionally when she looks at him with that quiet admiration, not for the way he looks, but for the way he feels to her. When she says his name softly, not out of routine, but because she's remembering who he is to her. That's the kind of intimacy that no physical touch can replace. It's in the way she listens when he speaks, the way she stays when he retreats, the way she makes him feel that his emotions aren't too heavy to hold. A man's greatest fantasy isn't to be perfect in her eyes, it's to be real and still be enough. He wants to be desired in the quiet moments, when he's vulnerable, when his voice cracks, when he admits he's scared. He wants to know that she finds strength in his honesty, not just in his stoicism. Because when a woman desires a man's truth, not just his image, she gives him something no one else can. Freedom. Freedom to feel. Freedom to soften. Freedom to exist without constantly performing for love. There's a reason why so many men chase validation. They mistake being wanted for being valued. But the man who's truly loved knows the difference. When a woman loves him emotionally, he doesn't have to fight for her attention. He becomes her piece, not her project. Her connection to him isn't built on what he provides, but on how he makes her feel, and how she makes him feel in return. He fantasizes about the day she reaches for him, not because she needs something from him, but because she misses who he is. The man who holds her, jokes with her, supports her, shares himself with her. He wants her to crave his energy, his words, his presence, not just his touch. Because physical attraction fades in moments, emotional attraction lingers in the soul. When a woman desires a man emotionally, she becomes his mirror, reflecting back to him the parts of himself he thought were unlovable. She reminds him that his empathy isn't weakness, his gentleness isn't a flaw, his emotions aren't something to hide. And in return, he becomes more open, more expressive, more alive in her presence. That's when love stops being something they have and becomes something they are. A man wants to feel like he moves her heart, not just her body. That his presence brings her peace, not just pleasure. That when she looks at him, she doesn't see a role. She sees a man who's trying. And that's enough. He dreams of the moment when she looks at him with that mixture of softness and fire. The look that says, I see your soul and I still choose you. Because that look, that feeling is what every man secretly longs for. He doesn't want to be her fantasy. He wants to be her truth, her safe space, her person. He wants to be the man she trusts with her laughter and her silence. The one she shares her chaos with, not just her calm. Because to be desired emotionally means she's not just drawn to his body, but to the energy that surrounds him. To his steadiness when everything feels uncertain. To his heart when the world feels hard. And here's the thing. When a man feels emotionally desired, he doesn't pull away. He softens. He shows up more. He listens deeper. He gives more of himself because he finally feels like he doesn't have to hide anymore. He starts to believe that love isn't a battlefield, it's a home. And in that home, he can finally rest. So when he thinks about the woman he loves, his fantasy isn't about seduction, it's about connection. He doesn't imagine her beneath him, he imagines her beside him. He imagines her looking into his eyes and saying, I want you for who you are, not what you give me. because that's the kind of desire that never dies. Every man wants to feel that his soul is worth chasing, that his silence is worth listening to, that his love is worth returning. Because when she desires him like that, not out of need, but out of choice, he stops searching for meaning elsewhere. He becomes the best version of himself, not to impress her, but because she already sees the man he's capable of being. That's what every man secretly fantasizes about, being desired not as an escape, but as a homecoming. To be looked at and known, to be touched and understood, to be loved not for his power, but for his presence. Because when a man feels emotionally desired, he doesn't just feel wanted, he feels whole. There's a kind of thrill that runs through a man when he's with a woman who makes him feel alive. Not just attracted, not just needed, but inspired. Because somewhere deep inside every man is a quiet desire, not just to make her happy, but to lead her into experiences that awaken something in her, something she forgot she even had. It's not about control, and it's not about ego. It's about impact. He doesn't want to simply be a part of her life. He wants to be the reason parts of her come to life. When a man truly loves a woman, he starts to see her in layers. He notices the way her eyes light up when she's excited, but also the way they dim when she's afraid to hope. He sees the strength she shows the world, but he also feels the softness she hides. And somewhere in that space, he finds his purpose to lead her deeper into herself, to show her experiences that remind her of her beauty, her fire, her freedom. He wants to be the man who makes her feel things she's never felt before, not through grand gestures or shallow romance, but through presence. A man who loves deeply doesn't just fantasize about pleasure. He fantasizes about awakening. He wants to lead her into moments that make her forget about time, the kind of experiences where she feels seen, heard, and alive all at once. Maybe it's the way he takes her hand and walks her into something new, a new place, a new dream, a new version of herself. Because when a man is grounded in love, his leadership isn't about direction, it's about invitation. He doesn't drag her forward, he inspires her to step forward with him. He wants to lead her into deeper experiences, emotionally, spiritually, intimately, to take her beyond the surface level of what they share and into something that moves both of them. He wants to create moments where they don't just exist beside each other, but merge, two souls expanding in the same rhythm. When he looks at her, he doesn't just see the woman she is. He sees the woman she could become when she's fully unafraid, fully expressed, fully alive. And his greatest fantasy is to be the man who helps her meet that version of herself. He fantasizes about being the reason she feels safe to explore her own depth. The one who doesn't shy away from her intensity, her emotions, her chaos, but leans in. Because deep love isn't polite, it's not tidy, it's messy, raw, breathtaking. And to lead her into deeper experiences, he has to be willing to go there himself, to face his own fears, his own silence, his own walls. That's what makes this fantasy so powerful. It's not about him being in control. It's about him having the courage to guide her into a space he's already walked through. A man can only lead her as far as he's gone within himself. So the more he heals, the more he opens, the more he grows, the deeper he can take her. Because his leadership isn't about telling her what to feel, it's about feeling with her. He dreams of taking her to places she's never been, not on a map, but in her heart, the kind of experiences that don't just stimulate the senses, but expand the soul. Maybe it's lying under the stars and talking about childhood dreams. Maybe it's traveling somewhere far away and seeing the world through new eyes. Maybe it's the kind of intimacy that has nothing to do with touch, but everything to do with truth. He wants to be the man who helps her rediscover wonder, the man who makes her feel like the world is big again and love is infinite. When a man leads with love, his direction doesn't come from dominance, it comes from devotion. He's not trying to prove his authority. He's trying to create connection. His leadership is born from the desire to build something with her, not to have power over her. He wants to lead her into experiences that remind her what it feels like to be fully alive, fully feminine, fully seen. And to do that, he listens. He observes. He studies her heart like it's a map, not to control her journey, but to walk beside her in it. He notices what moves her, what excites her, what scares her. And instead of pulling back, he steps forward, because the man who loves deeply doesn't avoid her complexity. He dives into it. He knows that to lead her deeper, he has to embrace the parts of her that not everyone understands. He wants to be the man who opens her world, not closes it. Who challenges her to dream bigger, not smaller. Who holds her accountable to her own greatness while still loving her through her uncertainty. He wants her to feel like life with him is an adventure, not because of what they do, but because of how they feel when they do it together. That's the kind of experience men fantasize about giving. To take her hand and say, "Trust me." To show her that love isn't about staying safe. It's about exploring together. To make her heart race not from fear, but from excitement. He wants to see her eyes widen when she realizes she's capable of more than she thought. And to know he helped her see that. That's what leadership in love looks like. Not commanding her steps, but lighting her path. And the truth is, every woman feels that when it's real. She can tell when a man's leadership comes from ego and when it comes from love. The man who leads from ego demands obedience. The man who leads from love invites trust. And when she feels that trust, something shifts in her. She lets go. She follows not because she's told to, but because her heart feels safe doing so. And in that moment, both of them rise. That's the power of deeper experiences. They turn love into growth, touch into transformation, connection into evolution. When a man leads a woman with genuine intention, he doesn't just give her new experiences. He gives her new dimensions of herself. And that's what he dreams of most. To look at her one day and see that she's more radiant, more alive, more herself than ever. And to know he had something to do with that. He doesn't want to lead her to himself. He wants to lead her to herself. To the version of her that's fearless, expressive, unguarded. The woman who dances freely, laughs loudly, loves deeply. Because when she's that woman, he feels like himself too. Her growth calls forth his strength. Her vulnerability calls forth his courage. And together, they rise higher than either of them could alone. That's the kind of fantasy that lasts. To be the man who doesn't just love her, but leads her into the kind of life that makes her love herself more. To create moments that don't just excite her for a night, but awaken her for a lifetime. That's not control. That's devotion. That's leadership born of love. And for a man who truly feels there's no greater desire than that, there's something sacred about a woman's trust. Once broken, it doesn't just disappear, it buries itself deep inside her, hiding beneath layers of caution, strength, and silence. And when a man loves a woman who's been hurt, he can feel that. He can feel it in the way she flinches when things feel too good, in the way she hesitates before leaning in the way she looks at him, not with doubt, but with a quiet fear that says, "Please don't be like the rest." And for a man who truly loves, that look changes everything, because suddenly his greatest fantasy isn't to win her body or her admiration. It's to earn back what the world took from her. A man who loves deeply fantasizes about being the one who awakens her trust again, not through promises, but through proof. He wants to be the reason she believes again, not just in love, but in the goodness of men, in the safety of surrender, in the beauty of being open. He doesn't want to fix her. He knows she isn't broken. What he wants is to show her that love can feel safe again, that she can exhale in his presence and not have to guard her heart every second. It's not easy, because the woman who has been betrayed doesn't just lose trust in others. She starts to lose trust in her own judgment. She wonders if she'll ever see red flags before it's too late, if she'll ever be able to open up without paying for it. So she builds walls, strong ones. And at first, he might mistake those walls for disinterest. But the man who truly sees her understands that those walls aren't there to keep him out. They're there to keep her safe. So he doesn't rush her, he doesn't push, he doesn't demand instant trust or perfect vulnerability. He simply shows up, consistently, patiently, softly, over and over again. Because the truth is, trust isn't rebuilt in grand gestures. It's rebuilt in the small, quiet moments that say, "I'm not going anywhere." The text he sends when she doesn't expect it. The calm in his voice when she tests his patience. The way he listens, really listens, without interrupting her pain with his own discomfort. He knows that love isn't measured by how fast it moves, but by how deeply it roots. And so he becomes steady, present, predictable in the best possible way, because what she needs most isn't excitement, it's safety. She needs to know that she can be emotional without being judged, distant without being abandoned, uncertain without being punished for it. And every time he meets her hesitation with understanding instead of frustration, something in her begins to thaw. She might test him, not to play games, but to see if he's real. She'll pull back, go quiet, or create distance just to see if he'll chase in the wrong way or stay in the right one. And he understands that. He knows she's not rejecting him. She's protecting herself from disappointment. So he lets her breathe. He lets her come back on her own terms. Because a man who wants to awaken her trust knows that trust isn't something you demand, it's something you earn. And the way he earns it isn't through perfect words, but through consistent action. When he says he'll call, he calls. When he makes a promise, he keeps it. When she opens up about something painful, he doesn't use it against her later. He shows her that her heart is safe in his hands, not by being flawless, but by being honest. Because the truth is, a woman doesn't need a perfect man to trust again. She just needs one who's real. He knows that trust grows in transparency, so he doesn't hide. He communicates. He tells her where he's at, even when it's uncomfortable, because he knows that secrets are the slow poison of love. Every time he's open, he's teaching her something, that intimacy can be built on truth, not illusion, that love can be strong and soft at the same time, that she doesn't have to sacrifice her boundaries to feel connected. He learns her patterns, the way she retreats when she's scared, the way she downplays her feelings, the way she pretends she's okay just to keep the peace. And instead of getting offended, he stays curious, because he understands that her defense mechanisms aren't rejection, they're survival. And he wants to be the man who helps her retire them, not because she doesn't need them anymore, but because she finally feels safe enough not to. That's what awakening her trust really means, creating an environment where her guard becomes unnecessary, where she can cry without apologizing, where she can be angry without fearing abandonment, where she can express her truth without walking on eggshells. And here's the part most men don't realize. When a woman feels safe, she doesn't just relax, she blossoms. Her laughter becomes louder, her eyes brighter, her affection deeper. She starts to give again, not because she owes him, but because her heart finally feels free to. And for a man who loves, there's nothing more beautiful than that. Watching her come alive again, not because of him, but because she finally believes that love can exist without pain. He doesn't want her to trust him because he's perfect. He wants her to trust him because he's present. Because when she's scared, he stays. When she's distant, he reaches gently. When she's angry, he listens instead of defending himself. That's how he proves that not every man leaves when things get hard, that not every love story ends in loss. He dreams of being the man who replaces her fear with peace, the one who makes her nervous laughter turn into genuine smiles, the one who touches her not just to claim her, but to comfort her. Because to awaken a woman's trust again is to remind her that love can feel safe and wild at the same time, that she can surrender without losing herself. He doesn't want to erase her past. He wants to build a future where it doesn't define her anymore, where her heart isn't a battlefield, but a garden, where her softness isn't something she hides, but something she celebrates. And one day, maybe not right away, but eventually, she'll look at him differently. That quiet, careful gaze will shift into something new. She'll stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. She'll start to laugh more easily, touch more freely, love more openly. And in that moment, he'll know he's done it. Not because she said, "I trust you," but because her eyes finally do. That's what men secretly fantasize about when they love deeply. To be the man who doesn't just win her heart, but restores her faith in love itself. To be the reason she stops flinching, stops doubting, stops holding back. To be the man who proves that love doesn't always end in heartbreak. Sometimes it ends in healing. Because when he awakens her trust again, he doesn't just change her life, she changes his. Her softness teaches him strength. Her faith teaches him patience. Her healing teaches him humility. And together, they create something sacred, a love that's not built on fear, but on the courage to trust again. There's a moment that every man who has ever truly loved a woman comes to know. The moment he realizes that love isn't just about passion and it isn't just about purpose. It's about the fire that happens when those two things finally meet. Passion alone burns fast, purpose alone runs cold. But when he finds a woman who ignites both, his heart and his mission, everything inside him changes. He no longer just wants to love her. He wants to build with her, to grow with her, to turn every heartbeat into meaning. A man who's in love with a woman he respects doesn't fantasize about escape. He fantasizes about alignment. He dreams of the day when his drive and his desire exist in the same breath. When the woman he loves isn't just his companion, but his compass, the one who reminds him why he started and who he's becoming. Because love, when it's real, doesn't distract a man from his purpose. It deepens it. He wants to wake up next to her and feel that sense of direction, not because she gives him goals, but because she gives him clarity. Her presence sharpens his focus. Her belief fuels his courage. Her softness keeps him grounded when ambition pulls him too far into the noise. She doesn't slow him down. She reminds him what he's running for. And that's where passion and purpose begin to merge, when love stops being a detour and starts being the destination. Every man, in his quietest moments, dreams of that connection. The kind of love that doesn't just set his skin on fire, but also gives his soul a reason